सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
It's been a full month, if you count the days, 31 days, or about 5 weeks since the Indian Air Force strikes at Balakot, and then the follow-on Pakistani retaliatory action in the air skirmish. But the story is refusing to die. If anything, it's now beginning to sound like one of those eternal controversies. More in India than in Pakistan, which is interesting, because in Pakistan, generally everybody seems to buy the version that their government is given, which is that when Indian Air Force came on the night of the early morning of the 26th, they did come inside, but they did not hit anything worthwhile and went back. And next day when PAF came to retaliate, one, they dropped a few bombs which missed their targets, but deliberately so, because PAF was only trying to make a statement that they had the capability of using smart weapons. And second, in the air skirmish, initially they claimed they shot down 2 IAF aircraft. Now they seem to be settled on one. I think they've gotten over the claim for the second one because it was too outlandish, and they lost nothing in the process and took an Indian pilot prisoner of war. Now, some of these are factual, fact that the Indian aircraft went in on the 26th morning, the fact the Pakistanis came in the next day, the fact that the bombs they dropped missed all their targets, also that one IAF aircraft was shot down and a pilot was taken prisoner, that is Wing Commander Abhinandan. Now, generally you would find, and I study Pakistani media and the rest, including the more critical Pakistani media, I find everybody generally accepts this. On the other hand, on the Indian side, there is a lot of argument. On the opposition side, a lot of people are saying, show me the evidence that you killed people in Balakot. Obviously, nobody can bring that evidence, but the fact also is that people in the government made exaggerated or maybe unsubstantiated claims, all based on sources, without coming up front and saying we estimate that so many terrorists got killed, but many figures floated. So that question, that issue has been questioned. Second, the fact that Government of India claims or Indian Air Force claims that at least 4 of their bombs hit the target in Balakot, whereas Pakistanis claim that everything missed the target. And now an Australian institute, ASPI, has also come up with a second report. They came up with an early report saying that everything missed the target. They have come out with a second report saying not only did everything miss the target, but 3 bombs missed the target precisely by the same distance. So it looks like these bombs were programmed wrongly. Now it's very possible, because these are all high-tech things. Stuff happens in wartime, and it is possible, because if something comes down from 30,000 feet or 40,000 feet from a distance say of 60 kilometers, gliding and then dropping down in a guided manner, it is possible that it gets it wrong by 33 meters. That's about 100 feet, just little over 100 feet. So this ASPI study indicates that these bombs were launched in such a way that they came over their targets, but did not reach the level of the targets just where the targets were, but went over them and fell sort of in a straight line like this, parallel to the targets, about missing them by about 33 meters. So this has become one more controversy. The other controversy that exists is the air skirmish. Did the Indian Air Force shoot down a Pakistani F-16 or not? Because Indian Air Force has made that claim formally and has now given that, in the Air Force language they call it kill, given that kill to Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman, because there is evidence that he fired his R-73 missile, and there is video evidence of another aircraft crashing and the parachute opening, which is not the IAF parachute, etc., etc. On that also there are arguments on the Indian side. Obviously the Pakistanis don't accept this at all. Now, first of all, let's not self-flagellate. It's a good thing that while in Pakistan everybody accepts the government's version as it is, in India there is debate. That is the essence of democracies. In a democracy, you have the right to raise questions about everything, including the claims of your armed forces, because nothing is sacrosanct and nothing is beyond questioning. That's what makes democracies great, and that's what makes democracies actually stronger states than dictatorships. It's a misnomer, it's a complete misconception that dictatorships are stronger states than democracies. It's a different debate. Now, look at the facts of these cases. First of all, on the Balakot strikes, I am going now chronologically. Balakot strikes, on the print today, please check out an article that Colonel Vinayak Bhatt has written for us. Now, Colonel Vinayak Bhatt is not just another army officer. He spent his lifetime in the army on satellite intelligence. He knows satellites like you and I know the route to our home from our workplaces. And he's done it all his life. He's also an expert on Chinese language. He's been an army intelligence veteran. So he's looked at pictures and data and some of the same pictures that this ASPI, the Australian Institute, has looked at. And he's done this article saying that, look, there are many problems with this analysis. So you read the article. It's tough for me to explain it technically also, because I'm not really a technical person. But basically what he's saying is that, one, essentially that they seem to have changed the targets in the initial images and the new images. Why have they done so? We don't know, because unless they change the targets, then these calculations will be different. They will not get these 3 misses in the same direction. Second, he says that they have calculated these bombs coming down at a certain angle, because these are pre-programmed bombs. They are gliding. These bombs are not rockets. These are not missiles on their own power. They are gliding and they are being directed. So, one, they are being directed by GPS systems. Second, they are also being directed by satellite and imagery and data fed into them. So, they identify the target and go into it. So, he says that if you look at the angle at which ASPI has calculated these bombs to be coming at, say, I am just very vaguely mentioning it to you like this, say if the bomb is coming like that, then the bomb would not have hit anything but the trees, because he shows you on the image, satellite image, that tall pine trees are growing around this facility in Balakot. In fact, he's shown you, he's exhibited the shadows of these pine trees over this facility, meaning thereby that if the pine trees are taller than the facility, there is no way the Indian Air Force will target these facilities at an angle where it will not be high enough to clear the trees. And theoretically, if it did not clear the trees, then it will hit the trees. It cannot go over the trees and hit the other end. So, he says that ASPI has calculated this angle wrong. He says he's not willing to say, or maybe we are not willing to say if there could be any motives. It's best not to question motives, it's best to question actions. The second thing he says is that if you calculate, he says this ASPI study tells you the angles from which these bombs were released. So, one, if the ASPI calculation is correct that these bombs were released from 60 kilometers, he says then Indian aircraft will have to be much deeper than has been imagined so far. But more importantly, he says if you look at these angles, and he says they go from, angle goes, one bomb has been released from, say, again I am making it very vague, say 197 degrees, the other is released from 247 degrees. So, if you extrapolate it over the distance from which the bombs have been released on the target, it would mean that the aircraft that released second and the third bombs were 45 kilometers apart. Now, we know that these aircraft did not go in a formation like they would do on a Republic Day parade. These aircraft did go separately, but going deep into hostile territory, just 6 aircraft with bombs, you don't expect them to be 45 kilometers apart, because then you are putting too much distance between yourselves, you are offering too many targets, and you are then look, if you find a corridor where you think radars will not catch you, it can't be such a large corridor. So aircraft, small bands of aircraft, just 6 aircraft, are not known ever to be in such a large envelope. So he uses all that evidence to say that this is wrong, and sticks by his earlier analysis that these roofs show smudges that make it look like there was damage in the roofs, something went in and it's now been patched up or being patched up. The images that we have seen, that I have also seen with our Air Force sources at the senior most level, top level, I would not say topmost or whatever, but at senior enough level, show 4 clear holes in these roofs. Now what happens inside the roof, inside those buildings, I can't say, although our sources in the Air Force explained to us that these bombs were fragmentation devices. These were not high explosives, these were not incendiary, these were fragmentation devices that go through a roof or maybe a bunker and burst inside. These bombs are essentially what is called as command post busters. So that's the job they have done. I do not believe that at the level at which I have interacted, people in our Air Force would produce completely fake pictures, because the pictures we have seen have holes in them. The pictures we have seen do look like the facility at Balakot, which all of us now know like the back of our hands. So that I think should conclude this one story, and it is not necessary now. I mean, okay, you can always raise questions, but I think raising questions now, even for the opposition, is counterproductive, because the Pakistani actions, the reaction to this shows that something really happened. Because if nothing happened at Balakot, Pakistanis took some media the very next day to some crater near Balakot and said this is where a bomb fell by mistake. Where are the fragments of that bomb? Where are the parts of that bomb? Something remains of the bomb, but even if that's not there, it's now been 31 days since the raid on Balakot. Even today, Pakistanis have not allowed any media, any independent observers to go inside that Balakot facility. In 31 days, you can rebuild fully a facility like that, which has CGI sheet roofs. So that, I think, is indication enough that whatever happened hurt that bunch of Pakistanis who were inside that Balakot building. So I think that controversy should now be set at rest. The second was a second plane brought down, or Pakistani plane brought down. First of all, the claim that a second Indian Air Force plane was brought down, even the Pakistanis have now forgotten it, they are not talking about it. The fact that they used F-16s, nobody doubts it. In fact, even if you look at the Pakistan government statement, it doesn't say F-16s were not used. They said the aircraft that infiltrated India, that crossed the airspace, were others, but all our Air Force was up, which includes the F-16s, and they did whatever they do in the self-defense. And when the Americans come and ask us, we will explain to them whether we were within our memorandum of understanding or not. What that means is that the Americans had said, you can use these F-16s and AMRAAM missiles for self-defense. You cannot take them into India to attack India. So it's a very simple thing that I think they are saying between the lines, that we infiltrated India with other aircraft. When Indian aircraft came to chase them, then we used whatever we had inside our territory to fire at them, which could be the F-16s. Now that is halfway to truth. The fact is that the 3 or 4 aircraft which actually crossed the line of control were F-16s. That is, there is sufficient radar and other evidence available. Now, did the Pakistanis lose an F-16? Indian Air Force made the claim that very day. We know in the heat of battle, all kinds of claims are made. We also know that air forces around the world are notorious for making exaggerated claims. That's why with every claim, you look for evidence. Now, in this case, the wreckage, if any, has fallen on the Pakistani side. The Indian aircraft, which might have had evidence of this missile being fired, hitting something, also fell on the Pakistani side. So there is very little evidence on the Indian side, except the fact that there was another F-16 in the vicinity, and that seems to have disappeared from the radar screens. But remember, go back and play the statements of Pakistani Defence Forces spokesperson Major General Ghafoor on that morning. First statement, 2 Indian aircraft have been shot, 1 pilot has been captured, 2 more are in the area. Second statement, 2 Indian aircraft have been shot, 2 pilots have been captured, 1 is with us and 1 is quite injured, so he has been sent to command hospital. In fact, he mentions the initials of the acronym of the hospital, I think CHM hospital or CMH hospital or something. 2 pilots. In the afternoon, Imran Khan speaks and says Indian aircraft were shot down, pilots are with us. By the evening, Pakistan government says we have only 1 pilot. Now, all this adds up to the possibility that in the fog of war in the morning, when 2 aircraft went down, when people who don't particularly know aircraft or air forces on the ground, maybe villagers, beat up these pilots and caught them, it was presumed at that very local level that the other one was also Indian, and then they realized soon enough that he wasn't Indian but Pakistani. So then all the cover up started, because until today Pakistan government or Pakistani spokesmen have not come back to say who that second pilot was, or was there a second pilot or not. Those videos are all available because they can't delete them, because the whole world has recorded those statements by the Pakistani army spokesperson. So I would rather that people in Pakistan who are very well informed about warfare and military matters, they would raise this question with their own armed forces and with their own armed forces spokesman, who seems to be a lot more accessible frankly than the Indian armed forces spokesman and a lot more empowered to speak. So ask him the question, was there a second pilot in the morning or not? Did you make this claim or not? If not, who did you send to the hospital? What happened to the man you sent in the hospital? And then question him on the other videos. See those 2 parachutes opening, see another plane coming down, see the parachute which is obviously not an IAF MiG parachute, because IAF MiG parachutes are different, and the videos of the villagers saying other things. So these are questions. Every battle, every skirmish leaves many questions, and questions must be asked. What is wrong is instinctively, depending on what your politics is or maybe what patriotism demands that you do, you jump to either believe one side or disbelieve the other side, or either disbelieve one side or believe the other side. So look for facts. If I look at all the facts that are available now, most dispassionately, I am convinced that at least 4 of the 6 bombs dropped by the Mirages hit the targets in Balakot. What they did inside, I don't know, because there is no way of knowing. I can say for sure that on the second day, only 1 IAF aircraft was lost. 2, that F-16s were used and they were in Indian territory and fired AMRAAM missiles. And 3, that from all the evidence, which is mostly circumstantial yet, and those statements by the Pakistani armed forces spokesperson, it does look like a Pakistani F-16 did go down. So that is where this stands. As more facts come, we will be open-minded to explore them. But I would say that today, if you take politics out of everything and the question of whether you like the current government or dislike the current government, or in Pakistan, are you always with your country or will you question your country's armed forces? If you take those things out and take those passions out, then this will be the factual situation. So I thought I will take some time just as you set up for the weekend and try and close this story, because I think sufficient evidence is now available at our end to take it to this logical conclusion.